Hey, what's up YouTube? Melon here. If you're new to my channel, welcome. Go ahead and push the subscribe button and be sure to turn on the bells for any notifications of upcoming videos. That would be helpful for me, and also you'll be able to get notified when future content is coming out. So today is a topic that has been circulating the news, has been out for the past 3 months, and if you don't know what it is, then you might have been living under a rock, I don't know. But I'm going to be talking about COVID-19 and specifically about my experience with having COVID-19. So it all started on May 13th. I was working from home and I woke up with a sore throat and I started to have a little bit of a cough and shortness of breath, but I didn't think too much of it until later that evening when it was about 4 or 5 o'clock. I started having fevers and it was about 99, so it was a low fever. Again, I didn't think anything too crazy about it. I went ahead and I decided to take just a little bit of a nap. So I napped for about 3 hours. And then after that nap, I went ahead and I took my temperature again and it had went up to about 101. And at this point, I'm worried. So I went to the room right next to me, which is where my roommate lives, and her boyfriend is over and he had a fever too. And we realized that maybe we had COVID. I don't know. We were having COVID symptoms. He was for sure that he couldn't have forgotten COVID, but for me, I just deep down, I had a feeling something is not right. So with that, I decided the next day, so it's now May 14th on a Thursday, I went in to the drive-in testing stations here in Charlotte. They have rapid testing, which takes only about 20 minutes, so it's nothing too crazy. You don't have to wait around 24, 48 hours for your test results. I know a lot of places it takes a while to get your test results back. But for me, I went in and of course they have the Q-tip, without the Q-tip part of it, off. And they put it in between your 2 nostrils, so where it meets, and they put it on both sides, and so they did that. And for me, like, it hurt, but it like didn't hurt as much as I was feeling. I just felt super crappy. I guess is all I can say. Like, my fever was up again, like I was coughing, I wasn't feeling too great. And so within about 20-30 minutes they came back, and usually they come back to your car with like the full mask and the get up if you do have it, but they only have a mask on if you don't have it. So when she came up with the face shield and she had all the garb on, I knew something's not right. And she said, you've tested positive for COVID. Like, you're 23 years old. We didn't expect for your test results to come back like that, but here's what you need to do. So she basically told me that I need to stay home and self-isolate for 10 days, which I was going to do, and that 72 hours near the end was whenever I needed to not have any symptoms and not needed to be taking any Tylenol or any medication before I can go back out into society. So for me anyways, like, I was already feeling like crap, so I didn't want to go out anyway, so I'm like, that's no problem for me. And so the first, I would say 8 days of having COVID-19, I had a fever that was high. Anytime I talked to a nurse or a doctor, they're like, no, that's a medium fever. But for me, I thought it was high. I had 102 to 103 fever for 8 days straight, and that freaked me the heck out. I don't know if any of you all have ever had a fever for 8 days straight, but I was worried about having brain trauma, for having liver damage from all the Tylenol I was taking. There's just all these different things that I started thinking about that could come along with having COVID, but also having these high fevers. And it was hard for me to balance, like, okay, do I want to get my fever up super high to where I'm going to have brain damage, or do I want to damage my liver and take more Tylenol than I should? I don't know. And it was just scary to be here at night because both of my roommates moved out as soon as they heard that I got COVID. Like, I don't blame them at all. Like, I did not want to like spread my germs onto them. They went back home, and like I suggested that they do it. They wanted to stay and help, but I'm like, you know, it's just best. Like, I don't know how you all are going to react to this, but they went on. So I was home alone. My mom wanted to come and take care of me. I'm like, Mom, you can't come take care of me. You just can't. You know, if my genetic coding is like feeling so bad from COVID, I can't imagine over double my age of someone trying to get COVID, and then it's just terrible, you know? So anyway, back to where I was feeling. So day 8, I was freaking out because I had had a fever for 8 days straight. My dad lives a town over from me, so he came over and brought me food and all that, and he'd bring me groceries, which is super nice, and he'd leave it on my porch. I'm on the 2nd story, so I talked to him from my porch down below, and my dad's like, before I leave, just go ahead and take your temperature. And I said, okay, like, I'll do that. I don't think I have a temperature right now, but let's see. And I took it and I started crying, and he said, what is it? And I said, that's 102, Dad, but I don't have symptoms like I usually do with a fever. I'm not shivering, and that's a high fever for not shivering, and I'm worried about how high it's going to get. So on day 8, I had a Zoom call with the doctor, and he told me that the next day I should come in just for a chest x-ray just to make sure I'm not getting pneumonia or nothing is going wrong in here. And so I said, okay, that's fine. And I honestly, like I said before, I didn't feel like doing anything. Like, I couldn't think, I couldn't drive, I couldn't even think about driving. Like, that's terrible to even like say that, and driving should be something simple, but I couldn't even do that. So I went ahead and I had my friend Lily take me. She actually had COVID as well, but she was asymptomatic, so she was able to drive me to where I needed to get the chest x-ray. So I went to get the chest x-ray, and at first the doctor met me at the car, and he had it's a aux pulse machine. I think I have one back here. It's this little guy. So, and you just put it on your finger, and it will tell you your heart rate, and it'll also tell you your oxygen level. And so he had me put this on my finger and to walk around the building before he did the chest x-ray. And what I didn't realize was how bad of shortness of breath I was facing, because I hadn't been walking a whole lot. And so just walking around the building really winded me, and I felt terrible. And my aux pulse was probably reading about 90, 92, which for someone my age, like, the least it should be is 94. I was starting at 98 when I first got COVID, but it went down to 90 to 92, and he's like, let's go ahead, do a chest x-ray. And I was like, man, that really winded me. I didn't even realize I was having problems with my lungs at that point. I was just started coughing a lot. But walking around the building just totally put me out. I was like, I'm so exhausted, this is terrible, what the heck. So I went ahead, did the chest x-ray, and with the chest x-ray, if you ever had one done before, you might know this, but they basically have you take a deep breath and hold it for 1 second, and then they're able to take a picture of your lungs to see what it's like. So they did it in the front and they did it in the side, but each time it was hard for me even to hold my breath for 1 second. I didn't even know that, and that freaked me out. Like, not being able to hold your breath for even just 1 second without coughing is terrifying. So I went ahead and I went to the next room, and he had me sit there while they looked at my x-rays, and he said, you know, your x-rays came back really foggy. We're a little worried about what we saw, so we're going to go ahead and call the ER because there's nothing else we can do here at this location, so you're going to have to go to the hospital in the city. And I'm like, okay, like, are they expecting me? He's like, yeah, they're going to be expecting you. Just have your friend drive you there. So she drove me to the hospital and dropped me off, and I didn't have anything on me. I didn't even know I was going to be staying the night in the hospital or visiting the hospital for that matter. And so I walked in, they got me checked in, and I was in the ER, and they told me that they were thinking about doing a CT scan, but they realized with COVID, CT scans aren't as accurate as they had thought, so they do blood work now. So they took my blood and they put needles in my veins, and it hurt really bad, but they took my blood away, whatever, and I had asked to go to the restroom. They come in, they bring me a porta potty. I'm like, oh, well, that's not what I was expecting, but all right. So use that, and then they told me that they were going to admit me to the hospital. I needed to stay the night, and that I had pneumonia in both of my lungs, which usually when you get pneumonia, you only get pneumonia in one of your lungs, but with COVID patients specifically, it's a thing called bilateral pneumonia, so you get it in both sides, and there's just a bunch of liquid in there. And I remember just thinking that night as I stayed the night in the hospital, like, never in my life would I have thought that I would be thinking about not living at 23. I remember the night before I went to the hospital, I was signing over beneficiaries to all of my bank accounts and thinking, never in my life would I have thought life would end here. And here I am, contracting a pandemic and there's no cure. And just thinking, like, if my fever got too high, like, what could they do? If Tylenol didn't work, there is no cure. There's nothing they can do. And just having those thoughts at 23 was terrifying. My mom was scared. My dad was scared. There's nothing that any of the doctors can really do. There's nothing they can cure. There's nothing that they can help with except give me medicine they've already come out with, which is Tylenol, ibuprofen, aspirin. That's about it. And a lot of the main worries with COVID patients also is having a heart attack. Usually with COVID, it makes your heart beat like this, and it's coming out of your chest, and that's what I felt. My heart rate on average when I was laying down was about 101 to 110, and it had been like that for 8 days. And there was just moments when I'd lay in bed thinking at night, like, you know, am I going to die of a heart attack? Am I going to die of a fever? Am I just going to pass out? I mean, do I even call an ambulance if I do have issues? Because what else can they do? You know, and I don't want to give it to anyone else. But okay, so fast back forward to when I'm in the hospital. So I'm having these thoughts again, just what's going to happen to me? Am I going to live? And it was just scary. I had all these IVs in my arms. They came in every 2 hours to take blood or give me blood thinner, and during the night, so I didn't really get really good sleep. There is moments when I would get up to go to the restroom and I'd have to take the entire like IV bag with me to go to the restroom, but I couldn't even walk across the room without coughing violently because my lungs just couldn't keep up with my body, and I would throw up and I was nauseous. I couldn't keep down any food, and you know, on top of that, like, I couldn't breathe, and of course I had fevers. And so I was in the hospital and they gave me medication through the IV bag to help with the pneumonia, which thank God it started to clear up. Like, I had a lot of prayer warriors praying for me, just there for me, people checking in on me virtually, of course. But it was just like sad to be in the hospital and not be allowed to have any visitors, to have no real hope really. Until the doctor came in and she said that they're thinking about helping me by doing a clinical trial drug. And at the thought of that, I'm like, yes, I'll do it, like, whatever it takes, okay. But she also told me that with the clinical trial drug, that when they give it to me, it could either be the trial drug or it could be a placebo, and that's how trials work. And my heart sank, because it's like, I will do anything to have some shot at curing this inside of me, even if it means like we have to spend money to buy it. But that's just not how clinical trials work. So even the researchers don't know when they put it in you if it's a placebo or real. So that was heartbreaking, but also like I wanted a chance at it. So it was a clinical trial drug called leronlimab, and I don't know if I said that right or if I totally butchered it, but it is basically an HIV and breast cancer drug that they're trying out on COVID patients. Some side effects that can come with it is nausea and fevers, but I already had that because I had COVID, so it's kind of like, I mean, like, how much worse can it get anyway? So, but I decided to go for it. So they injected it into me. I believe that it was the real drug because it burned, and so I still don't know, and I'm not going to know until the case study, or the study that they're doing is completely over, but that's just something that I'll find out with time. But basically they had 2 injections and they put it in both sides of my abdomen, and yeah, it burned. But the next day, so they did blood work on me maybe like 3 or 4 times a day, I would say, and they would take it and just look at the different levels. But the next day when they took my blood levels, they realized that my inflammation level had dropped by 100 points, and also my blood clotting factor had dropped by 20 points. And that's why they think that it was probably the real drug. That's what my nurse thinks anyway, because all of that dropped overnight and completely like changed me. And I was sitting up in bed 30 minutes after she gave it to me, and I was fine. I mean, I still had a fever, like there's still like things wrong with me, but I was feeling 100 times better. But all in all, I stayed the night in the hospital for 3 nights. But it was just weird to leave the hospital on the 3rd day still feeling ill and still having COVID, because, you know, you usually think you go to the hospital, feel better, and you leave feeling better. but I left. Yes, the pneumonia was starting to leave, but my chest x-rays were still foggy and they still weren't good. And they were sending me home, and they told me, they said, you know, a lot of people are dealing with COVID at home with self-isolation. Like, we've, you know, helped with the pneumonia, but that's all we can do. And it's just like scary to leave the hospital knowing you're still sick and there's still no cure, and who knows if the clinical trial drug really worked, you know? I mean, yes, my blood numbers were looking great, but still, like, what if I got it back, or what if I needed to go back to the hospital? And it was just all these thoughts that were circulating in my head all the time, and it wasn't a good space to be in, I will say that. But I would say I came back home on a Saturday, and I started feeling better, so I didn't have a fever anymore, which is amazing because I hadn't been without a fever at this point for 12 days. And so I was without a fever, and my cough was still there, but it wasn't as bad. They gave me an inhaler to help with the coughing and my lungs. But I ended up, cough wasn't there, but I was very fatigued, and I would still feel very, very tired, like sickly tired. And I honestly, when I tell you, like, I didn't want to do anything. Like, I really just wanted to lay in bed. I didn't even want to get up to drink water. Like, that's how bad COVID made me feel. So yeah, I felt fatigued for a while. I ended up going back to work and working from home that Wednesday, and they were all happy to have me back, but I was still so tired. And in the meantime, I've been visiting the research doctor to do some checkups and do more blood work. And so I went to work on Wednesday, and then on Thursday I went for another research appointment, and they gave me my second injections with either the drug or the placebo. And again, it burned, and after I got the drug, I felt no longer fatigued. So I'm like, this had to be the drug. Like, there's no way I can just like make myself better, think that I'm better, and think my way out of COVID, because this thing is just terrible. But anyways, I got that on Thursday, and now it is Sunday, and I feel a lot better. I do have one more week of self-isolation, so by the end of all of the isolation days I've had, I will have been in isolation for a total of 25 days. Usually, like I said at the beginning, they require you to be at home for 10 days, and then 3 of those days need to be without symptoms or needing to take medication. But for me, after I left the hospital, they told me I needed to be in self-isolation for another 14 days. So with that, here I am. I don't know what day I'm on right now. It is Sunday, so next Saturday is my freedom day, and I'm able to go out again. And the reason I share my story and I tell this to you all is because I know there's a lot of controversy in the news and social media about wearing masks and what should be open and what, you know, can pools be open, and I don't want to social distance, and just there's so much controversy around all of it. And I tell you this story just to let you know that I am 23 and I had the coronavirus, COVID-19, and I felt like absolute crap, and it can happen to you too. And I don't say that to just scare you, but just to take precautions and to realize that, you know, life is short and you need to take the precautions to keep yourself healthy and safe. Yes, I was careful. Yes, like I went to the grocery store and took walks outside, and that was it. I didn't go to like any crazy parties during this time. I've literally stayed home with my roommates, and that's it. But somehow I still got COVID-19, and I'm not invincible, and neither are you. So I hope that you can watch this video and take away from the fact that even if you are young, things can happen, and it's as sad as it is, it can, and I just want you all to stay safe. So everyone, please just wear masks, social distance when you can, just like take the precautions you need for yourself, but also your loved ones, like your grandparents and your family back home. So thank you guys for listening to my story. Like I said at the beginning, subscribe if you want to see more videos, and then click the bell to get any notifications of videos that I make in the future. See you guys.